when the body dies and the I remains, what agency is aware of the I? When there's not the instrument of the perception of the body anymore. As I listen, and there's only the I am, that's not limited to the body. And what is known, how is it known that the I mean, that's not an experience, because if it's an experience, it needs something to experience it. But when the I remains, what is it? Is it known?
It's known to itself, but it's not known to itself in the same way that the mind knows objective knowledge. All objective knowledge is known in duality. I see the flowers.
Right. And that's
I
called
love you. A subject always knowing an object.
So that's called an experience.
Yes, we could call it an objective experience, and it's always known by and from the point of view of a subject.
Right.
So everything that each of us is now knowing is, we could call it dualistic knowledge or experience. I am aware of my thoughts. I see the flowers. But awareness's knowledge of itself is not conventional dualistic knowledge, because in its knowledge of itself there is no subject that knows and no object that is known. The subject, or rather the subject that knows and the object that is known is the same. So awareness knows itself simply by being itself.
But that it is not aware of awareness.
No, it's not. Exactly, it's not. Awareness is not aware of. Awareness of always implies a subject and an object. Aware of our thoughts. We are aware of the flowers.
So when you say, when I understand that the I remains,
yes,
beyond all form, matter, it is not aware of aware anymore. It's not nothing.
It's not aware of itself in the same way that it once seemed to be aware of thoughts and feelings.
So there's now no quality of any kind to it anymore.
There's no objective quality to it. And yet at the same time we cannot say that it is unknown. If the experience of being aware was unknown, each of us would answer no to the question, are you aware? But each of us answers yes to the question, are you aware? And that is because the experience of being aware is known. It is known by itself. But if I were to ask you, go now with your attention to the experience of simply being aware, where would you go with your attention?
Now, in the now? I mean, it is now.
That's true, but what would you do with your attention? And where would you find the experience of being aware? Try now to find the experience of being aware with your attention.
Cannot.
You can't. But does that mean that it is unknown?
No.
No. It is known, but it is not known by the mind.
Yeah, it simply is.
But it is, and it is known. You know the experience of being aware, or rather, awareness knows the experience of itself. But it cannot go towards itself. If I were to ask you now, stand up and take a step towards yourself, what would you do? You can't take a step towards yourself. Awareness cannot go to itself. It cannot look at itself, because it's already standing in itself. It's too close to itself to know itself in subject-object relationship. What does the sun have to do to illuminate itself? Does it have to direct the rays of its light in a particular direction?
No, it's happening.
It
happening
is
anyway.
the illumination. Just by being itself, it illuminates itself. When it illuminates the moon, there is a sun that illuminates and a moon that is illuminated. A subject that does the illuminating and an object that is illuminated. When we know an object, there seems to be a subject that knows and an object that is known. But for awareness, just as the sun that illuminates is the sun that is illuminated, so the awareness that knows is the awareness that is known. In other words, awareness's knowledge of itself is not in subject-object relationship. It cannot be known as an object, and therefore the mind says it is unknowable. From the point of view of the mind, it is unknowable.
So in fact, it's the word experience is not in this field. Has no sense. Makes no sense.
Say that again.
The word experience makes no sense in this context.
If by experience we mean, and I usually use the word experience to mean objective experience, thoughts, feelings, sensations, and perceptions. If we stick to that meaning of the word experience, then awareness's knowledge of itself is not an experience. It's never an object of knowledge. And therefore the mind, some minds as a result, some highly respected, in fact some of the most respected philosophers of our age, say that not only is consciousness not knowable, some even go so far as to say that consciousness doesn't exist, that only objects exist. That is because these so-called philosophers have not investigated the nature of their minds. From the mind's point of view, consciousness cannot be known, and because they have not thought very deeply about their experience, they believe that consciousness is either unknowable or, even worse, non-existent. I'm sure, I can't resist the story of the Oxford professor. I'm sure that some of you know this story, but I know that many of you are new here, so I'm going to tell it briefly. A year or so ago, Ellen and I attended a lecture in Oxford, given by a highly respected professor of philosophy at Oxford University, and the lecture was titled The Nature of Consciousness. I was, of course, fascinated that someone from the philosophy department in Oxford was speaking about the nature of consciousness. Of course, my fascination was soon extinguished when I heard him talking. At one point during the talk, he said, and I quote verbatim, "Some philosophers believe that consciousness can know itself. Their ideas should be put in the trash." This was a highly respected professor of philosophy at one of the world's great educational establishments, overlooking the most simple, obvious fact of experience, the knowledge of our own existence.
Did you keep quiet, or did you?
Did I keep quiet? I was fizzing on my chair. I could not wait until question time came. And so question time came, and in my politest English, I said to him something like this: is it not true that everybody here has the experience that they are aware? And he thought for a while, and I could sense that he felt that he was being backed into a corner. And he was. But I tried to ask the question in such a way as to provoke as little resistance as possible. So I made what I thought was a simple, obvious fact of everyone's experience. Is it not all of your experience that you are aware? The answer is obviously yes. So, and he cautiously agreed. So then I asked him, what is it that knows the experience of being aware? And I could see him retreating one step back into the corner, and he wouldn't answer that question. So I said, whatever it is that is aware, that we are aware, must itself be aware. It's like 2 plus 2 equals 4. It's no more complicated than that. And again, he remained silent. And I said, therefore, the knowledge that I am aware is awareness's knowledge of itself. And he said, oh, no, you're going far too fast. And then he went off again in his completely complicated, abstract lines of reasoning. So I tried once more to bring the conversation back to his experience, and he just turned away and took the next question.
Did people come to you afterwards?
A few people did, yeah. There were a couple of there was another person, I could tell that he was in the Buddhist tradition. He also asked a question. He said, he asked him a very good question. He said to him, when we fall asleep at night, we dream. And we are obviously aware of our dreams. And whatever it is that is aware of our dreams is the same awareness that is aware of our experience in the waking state. And therefore, awareness doesn't fall asleep at night. Oh, no, he said, no, it's not that. And then he again, and this other guy, his question was spot on. It was, so there were a few people in the audience, and I could tell when I asked my question, there were few, but precious few in the audience that resonated with what I said, but most of the people in the audience, they were all his students from the university, who just couldn't get enough of him. They loved it.
His private nightmare.
I was shocked. I was so naive to think that a professor of philosophy at Oxford, studying the nature of consciousness, must, in the end, inevitably come to the conclusion that we come to here. But he was so blinded by his conditioning that he could not see the simple fact of experience. The knowledge of our own existence, the knowledge I am, is consciousness's knowledge of itself. I know that I am. It was both comic and tragic. Really, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry.